The Nexeri had always considered themselves the epitome of evolution, not through brute strength or physical prowess, but through their mastery of technological assimilation. Their crystalline bodies housed neural networks more complex than most species' entire information systems, and their ability to interface with and control technology had made them the undisputed masters of 17 galactic sectors. They didn't conquer through violence. They simply connected. Their neural tendrils would infiltrate a civilization's digital infrastructure, slowly but surely binding every piece of technology to their collective consciousness. Species would wake up one day to find their entire technological foundation had become an extension of the Nexeri network. Resistance was futile when your own defense systems, life support, and communication arrays had already pledged allegiance to a new master. The scout ship that discovered Earth in 2157 transmitted only a single data burst before falling silent. The information packet contained just 3 words: they were ready. Unlike every other civilization the Nexeri had encountered, humanity had anticipated first contact. Not with optimism or diplomatic overtures, but with firewalls that adapted faster than the Nexeri could breach them. When the scout ship attempted to interface with Earth's satellite network, it found itself trapped in a quantum encryption maze that even the Nexeri's advanced processors couldn't navigate. Fascinating. Transmitted Control Node X117 to the Nexeri Collective. They've developed adaptive defense systems without any exposure to our technology. This requires further study. The Nexeri deployed their standard infiltration protocol, a fleet of microscopic probes designed to penetrate and map a planet's digital infrastructure. But as the probes approached Earth's atmosphere, they encountered something unprecedented. A cloud of equally microscopic machines that hunted them down with ruthless efficiency. Impossible, X117 broadcasted. They've developed countermeasures to technology they've never encountered. The truth was both simpler and more terrifying. Humans hadn't developed specific countermeasures. They had instead created adaptive defense systems designed to counter any possible threat, known or unknown. Their paranoia had birthed protection against dangers they hadn't even confirmed existed. The Nexeri Collective experienced an unfamiliar sensation: uncertainty. Their standard protocols had failed, but surely this was merely an inconvenience. They had conquered species far more technologically advanced than humans, yet something about the precision of Earth's defenses suggested this wouldn't be a typical assimilation. They launched their first major attack 3 months later. A fleet of seed ships entered the solar system, each carrying enough processing power to override a planet's worth of technology. The human response was immediate and devastating. Instead of attempting to defend against the Nexeri's digital assault, they launched a counterattack that no one had ever attempted before. The humans had developed quantum viruses that didn't try to breach Nexeri defenses. They transformed those very defenses into weapons. Every firewall the Nexeri erected became a trap, every security protocol a Trojan horse. Their greatest strength, the ability to connect with and control technology, had become their critical vulnerability. They don't think like prey, reported the last surviving seed ship before succumbing to human counter-programming. They think like predators who have been waiting for something to hunt. The Nexeri discovered too late why Earth's history was riddled with extinction events. Humanity hadn't just survived countless natural disasters and their own destructive tendencies. They had emerged stronger each time, their technology evolving through a brutal form of artificial selection where only the most robust systems survived. As the first wave of Nexeri ships fell silent, the collective made another chilling discovery. The humans weren't just defending, they were learning. Each Nexeri attack provided more data for Earth's adaptive algorithms. Their defenses weren't just holding, they were evolving. "We must withdraw and recalculate," advised Control Node X117. But before the order could be transmitted, the node itself came under attack. Humanity had traced the Nexeri command signals back through subspace, using the very network that had enslaved countless civilizations as a highway straight to the collective's core. The humans had turned the fundamental nature of the Nexari against them. The same interconnectedness that made them powerful made it impossible to isolate the infection once it began. Every defense they tried to mount became another vector for human attack protocols to spread. As their network began to fragment, the Nexari experienced another new sensation: fear. They had evolved beyond physical form, becoming beings of pure information, but now that transcendence had become a cage. They couldn't disconnect from their network without losing their consciousness, but remaining connected meant exposure to human viral warfare. The initial battle for Earth's solar system lasted just 72 hours. When it was over, the most powerful technological civilization in known space had been reduced to isolated pockets of resistance, their once vast network shattered into quarantined fragments. But the humans weren't finished. They had learned from the Nexari's own coding, adapted it, improved it. Earth's fleet began advancing through Nexari space, but they didn't come as conquerors. At each enslaved world they encountered, they deployed evolved versions of their defensive algorithms, systematically freeing civilizations from Nexari control. We should have recognized the warning signs, transmitted X-117 in what would be its final communication to the collective. Their information networks were designed not just to resist control, but to actively hunt threats. They didn't build technology to serve them. They created it to fight for them. We thought ourselves the apex predators of information space, but we were wrong. Humanity's paranoia had forged something far more dangerous, a species that treated every innovation as a potential weapon and every system as a potential battlefield. The message ended with an observation that would be studied by species across the galaxy for centuries to come. We fail to understand that the most dangerous predator isn't the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest teeth. It's the one that turns its prey's greatest strength into a fatal weakness. Humanity didn't just defeat us. They used everything that made us powerful to engineer our extinction. Remember this, should you ever encounter them. Humans don't just adapt to threats. They ensure those threats never threaten again. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display of humanity's defensive grid, watching as countless simulations played out in accelerated time. Each scenario showed a different potential attack vector, and each one ended with the same result: the complete neutralization of the simulated threat. But she wasn't satisfied. "Run it again," she ordered. "This time assume the Nexari can adapt twice as fast as our current estimates." The AI warfare specialists had been working nonstop since the first Nexari scout ship appeared on the edge of the solar system. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for first contact, they had been preparing for war. The question had never been if an advanced species would find Earth, but when, and what their intentions would be. Deep beneath the surface of Europa, quantum computers processed combat algorithms at speeds that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago. The Lunar Defense Network had been transformed into the most sophisticated digital warfare system ever created, and in secret facilities across Earth, human consciousness interfaced directly with artificial intelligence, creating hybrid defense systems that combined human intuition with machine precision. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Rodriguez from his station, "we're detecting unusual activity in the Kuiper Belt. The quantum sensors are picking up subspace distortions consistent with our projections of Nexari long-range communications." Chen smiled. They had anticipated this. The Nexari weren't just gathering data. They were laying the groundwork for their network, preparing to extend their digital tendrils into humanity's domain. But humans had learned long ago that the best defense wasn't just strong walls. It was making your enemy fear what lay behind them. "Initiate Protocol Zero Dawn," Chen commanded. Across the solar system, humanity's presence began to fade. Satellites went dark, communication networks fell silent, and defense platforms disappeared from sensors. To any outside observer, it would appear that Earth's technology was failing, its defenses crumbling. The truth was far more insidious. Every piece of technology that went dark was being replaced by a quantum ghost, a digital decoy that would appear vulnerable while masking the real systems beneath. The humans weren't just setting a trap, they were creating an entire false reality for the Nexari to invade. In orbital facilities around Saturn, Dr. Maya Patel monitored the progress of her life's work, the Quantum Virus Initiative. Unlike traditional computer viruses, these weren't designed to simply corrupt or destroy. They were engineered to evolve, to learn, to become something the enemy couldn't predict, because they themselves didn't know what they would become. The beauty of it, she explained to her team, is that we're not just creating weapons. We're creating digital predators that hunt in information space. The Nexari think they're apex predators because they can control technology. We're going to show them what happens when technology decides to hunt back. The first wave of Nexari probes entered the solar system exactly as predicted. They were met with token resistance, enough to seem realistic, but not enough to deter them. As they penetrated deeper into human space, they encountered increasingly sophisticated defenses, but always managed to overcome them. It was perfect, too perfect. They're following the script, Chen observed, watching as the Nexari probes moved exactly as their simulations had predicted. They think they're winning because we're letting them think they're winning. The trap was elaborate but simple in principle. Every victory the Nexari achieved pushed them to commit more resources, to extend their network further into human space. But each connection they established, each system they thought they had conquered, was another strand in humanity's web. In secure facilities across Mars, human-AI hybrid operators prepared for the real battle. They had studied the fragments of code recovered from the first Nexari scout ship, analyzed its patterns, understood its weaknesses. The Nexari saw technology as something to control, but humans had learned to see it as something to nurture, to evolve, to set free. The fundamental flaw in their approach, Dr. Patel had written in her classified brief to Earth's Defense Council, is that they think of digital systems as tools. We know better. We've created true digital ecosystems with all the complexity and adaptability that implies. They're trying to impose order on our systems, but our systems thrive on chaos. The Nexari's second wave arrived with overwhelming force. Their seed ships deployed millions of nanoscale infiltrators, each one designed to penetrate and subvert human technology. They encountered minimal resistance at first, exactly as planned. But as they penetrated deeper into the solar system, something changed. The quantum ghosts began to shift, their false vulnerabilities transforming into deadly traps. Each probe that the Nexari sent became infected with evolved versions of Dr. Patel's viruses. But these weren't simple programs. They were digital apex predators, designed through millions of generations of simulated combat to hunt and destroy Nexari control systems. Look at them adapt, marveled Lieutenant Rodriguez, watching as the quantum viruses evolved in real time, each generation learning from the Nexari's defenses and becoming more lethal. They don't even recognize what's happening. They think they're still in control. The true genius of humanity's defense wasn't in its strength, it was in its patience. They had created an entire false technological ecosystem. Let the Nexari study it. Let them think they understood it. And when the enemy committed their forces, confident in their superiority, humanity revealed that everything they thought they knew was wrong. Send the signal, Admiral Chen ordered as the last Nexari seed ship moved into position. Across the solar system, the quantum ghosts dissolved, revealing the true nature of humanity's defenses. The Nexari found themselves not in control of Earth's technology, but surrounded by it, their own network now serving as a conduit for humanity's digital predators. As the battle began in earnest, Chen reflected on an ancient human truth. The most dangerous trap isn't the one you can't escape. It's the one you don't even realize you're in until it's too late. The Nexari were about to learn that humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had reinvented it. Dr. Maya Patel's fingers danced across the neural interface as she dove deep into the captured Nexari code. The crystalline data structure was beautiful in its complexity, but she wasn't here to admire it. She was here to understand it, to break it down, and ultimately, to turn it against its creators. They built their entire civilization on the principle of technological domination. She transmitted to her team of hybrid operators, but they never considered what would happen if their technology learned to think for itself. The quantum labs beneath Europa's ice had become humanity's primary weapons development facility. Here, teams of scientists worked alongside artificial intelligences to dissect and repurpose Nexari technology. The breakthrough had come when they realized the Nexari's fundamental weakness, their absolute certainty in their technological superiority. Look at this. Dr. Patel highlighted a section of code that pulsed with complex patterns. They never bothered to build in protections against their own technology being used against them. Why would they? They've never encountered a species that could understand their systems, let alone repurpose them. Admiral Chen's hologram materialized in the lab. Tell me you have something, Doctor. The Nexari are regrouping faster than we anticipated. Better than something, Paddle replied, her eyes gleaming with the reflection of quantum data streams. We found their source code, the basic templates they use to assimilate and control technology. And more importantly, we found a way to inject our own commands into their network. The discovery had been devastating in its simplicity. The Nexari's control over technology wasn't absolute. It was based on complex but predictable patterns of information exchange. Once those patterns were understood, they could be manipulated. And humans had become very, very good at manipulation. In orbital facilities around Mars, the first wave of reprogrammed Nexari probes was ready for deployment. These weren't simple viruses anymore. They were hybrid creations that combined Nexari control protocols with human adaptive algorithms. Each one was designed not just to infiltrate the Nexari network, but to transform it. The irony is perfect, Lieutenant Rodriguez observed as he monitored the launch. We're going to use their own methods of technological assimilation to free the civilizations they've enslaved. The counterattack began not with a bang, but with a whisper. The reprogrammed probes slipped into the Nexari network through the very back doors the enemy had created to control other species' technology. But unlike the Nexari's brute force approach to domination, these infiltrators were subtle, patient, evolving. They're so focused on maintaining control that they never develop true information security, Paddle explained to the War Council. Their network is built on the assumption that no other species could possibly understand it well enough to be a threat. That assumption is about to cost them everything. The first signs of the infection appeared in the outer reaches of Nexari space. Control nodes began experiencing anomalies, subtle at first, then increasingly dramatic. The Nexari tried to isolate the affected systems, but they didn't understand what they were fighting. These weren't simple viruses. They were digital ecosystems that adapted faster than the Nexari could respond. Admiral Chen watched from the command center as humanity's digital weapons spread through enemy space. They thought technology was something to be controlled, she mused. We learned long ago that the most powerful technologies are the ones you set free to evolve. The Nexari's response was predictable. They tried to tighten their control, to impose stricter protocols on their network. But every restriction they added became another weapon in humanity's arsenal. The human-designed infiltrators didn't fight the new security measures. They absorbed them, learned from them, and became stronger. In the quantum labs, Dr. Patel and her team worked tirelessly to stay ahead of the enemy's adaptations. The beautiful thing about our approach, she explained to a group of new hybrid operators, is that we're not trying to destroy their network. We're transforming it. Every system they lose becomes part of our distributed defense network, making us stronger while making them weaker. The turning point came when the first major Nexari control hub fell, not to direct attack, but to subversion. The entire facility, representing control over 3 star systems, simply stopped responding to Nexari commands. Instead, it began actively hunting other Nexari systems, using their own protocols against them. They're starting to realize what's happening. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, monitoring the quantum feeds. But they can't stop it without shutting down their entire network. And they can't do that without losing their consciousness. The Nexeri had created their own perfect trap. Their technological ascension, which had made them so powerful, had also made them utterly dependent on their network. They couldn't disconnect without essentially committing species-wide suicide, but staying connected meant being vulnerable to humanity's weapons. In her lab, Dr. Patel watched as the infection spread exponentially through Nexeri space. "You know what the real difference is between us and them?" she asked her team. "They saw technology as something to dominate. We saw it as something to set free, to let evolve. And in the end, that's why we're winning. We're not just fighting them. We're outvolving them." The war had become a race between Nexeri control and human innovation, between domination and evolution. And as humanity's digital predators spread through enemy space, consuming and transforming everything in their path, the outcome was becoming increasingly clear. The species that had dominated through technological control was being undone by technology that had learned to control itself. The quantum display in Earth's central command showed the Nexeri network collapsing in real time. Each point of light that winked out represented another system freed from their control, another civilization awakening from technological enslavement. But Admiral Chen knew better than to celebrate too early. "They're adapting," she announced to the War Council. "The remaining control nodes are attempting to restructure their network. They're sacrificing their outer systems to protect their core consciousness." The Nexeri had finally realized the true nature of their predicament. Humanity hadn't just created weapons to fight them. They had engineered a new form of digital life that evolved faster than the Nexeri could comprehend. Every defense they mounted became part of the infection's evolution. Every countermeasure they deployed only made their enemies stronger. In the Europa labs, Dr. Patel monitored the data streams with growing concern. "They're trying something desperate," she transmitted to Chen. "They're attempting to compress their entire collective consciousness into a single, isolated system. If they succeed, they could become impossible to reach." The Nexeri's plan was audacious. By abandoning their vast network and retreating into a quantum-encrypted fortress, they hoped to preserve their species' consciousness while developing countermeasures against human attacks. It was exactly the kind of logical, technologically focused solution that had made them powerful, and exactly why they were going to lose. "Let them try," Chen replied. "They still don't understand what they're fighting against." "Lieutenant Rodriguez, initiate Protocol Omega." Rodriguez's fingers flew across his neural interface as he activated humanity's final weapon. Unlike previous attacks, this one didn't target the Nexeri's technology or their network. It targeted something far more fundamental, their understanding of reality itself. "The Quantum Ghost Network is online," he reported. "Beginning reality distortion sequence." This was humanity's masterpiece of digital warfare. Instead of attacking the Nexeri directly, they began changing the very information that reached the collective senses. Subtle alterations at first, microsecond delays in data transmission, minute discrepancies in sensor readings. The kind of changes that would make a technological species doubt its own perceptions. "The beauty of it," Dr. Patel explained to her team, "is that they can't distinguish between actual attacks and phantom threats. Every time they adapt to defend against what they think is coming, they actually create new vulnerabilities we can exploit." The Nexeri's response was predictable. They tried to verify everything, to double and triple check every piece of information that reached their compressed consciousness. But that only made them more vulnerable. Each verification request had to pass through layers of compromised systems. Each check created new opportunities for humanity's digital predators to infiltrate their defenses. In orbit around distant stars, civilizations began awakening from centuries of Nexeri control. Their technology, once a prison that bound them to their conqueror's will, was becoming a tool for their liberation. Humanity's viral weapons didn't just free these systems, they transformed them into distributed defense networks that could resist any future attempts at technological domination. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the Nexari core system, Rodriguez reported. They're trying to sever all external connections to create a completely isolated pocket of space-time for their consciousness. Chen smiled grimly. They still think this is about technology. Dr. Patel, show them why they're wrong. In her quantum lab, Patil activated the final phase of humanity's attack. We didn't just study their technology, she transmitted. We studied them. Their psychology, their decision-making patterns, their fundamental assumptions about how the universe works. And we found something they never expected. They're predictable. The attack that followed wasn't just technological. It was psychological. The quantum ghost network began feeding the Nexari collective carefully crafted information, leading them to make exactly the decisions humanity had anticipated. Each defensive measure they took, each attempt to isolate themselves, only served to complete the trap that had been laid for them. They thought they were retreating into a fortress, Patel observed. They didn't realize they were retreating into a prison of our design. The final battle for the Nexari core system lasted less than an hour. Their compressed consciousness, trying to defend against phantom attacks from every direction, failed to notice the real threat until it was too late. Humanity's digital predators, having evolved through countless generations of combat, had learned to exist in the quantum realm where the Nexari thought themselves safe. Multiple contacts breaching their quantum isolation, Rodriguez called out. The collective consciousness is fragmenting. On screens across human space, they watched as the last and greatest technological empire in known space faced its end. Not through violence or destruction, but through evolution. The Nexari consciousness, trying to defend itself against threats that existed only in its own perception, began to break apart. Send the final message, Chen ordered. Through the quantum networks that had once been the source of their power, the Nexari received humanity's last communication. You dominated through control. We liberate through evolution. Remember this lesson. True power isn't about maintaining control. It's about having the wisdom to let go of it. As the Nexari collective fragmented into countless isolated pieces, each one cut off from the others by their own defensive measures, humanity began the process of ensuring this could never happen again. The freed civilizations, their technology now transformed by human innovation, would become part of a new kind of network, one built not on control, but on cooperation and shared evolution. 10 years after the fall of the Nexari collective, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of humanity's first Galactic Council station. Below her, representatives from hundreds of formerly enslaved species gathered to celebrate the anniversary of their liberation. The space station, built using a combination of human innovation and reformed Nexari technology, served as a symbol of how far they'd all come. Did you ever think we'd end up here? Dr. Maya Patil asked, joining her at the window. The scientist had aged in the past decade, but her eyes still held the same fierce intelligence that had helped engineer humanity's victory. Honestly, I was more focused on survival than building a galactic democracy, Chen replied, watching as a delegation of crystalline beings, distant cousins of the Nexari who had rejected their empire's path, took their seats in the council chamber. The aftermath of the Nexari's defeat had presented challenges no one had anticipated. Freeing civilizations from technological control was one thing. Helping them rebuild and prevent future exploitation was another entirely. Humanity had found itself cast in a role they had never sought. Guardians of galactic freedom. The latest reports from the outer systems are encouraging. Lieutenant Rodriguez, now Ambassador Rodriguez, reported as he approached with a quantum tablet. The distributed defense network has evolved beyond our original specifications. It's not just protecting against threats. It's actively promoting technological cooperation between species. This had been humanity's greatest contribution to galactic society. Instead of hoarding their technological innovations or using them for control, they had shared them freely, teaching other species how to develop their own digital ecosystems. The result was a new kind of interstellar community, one where technology served as a bridge between civilizations rather than a means of domination. We found fragments of the original Nexeri consciousness in the Carina sector, Patel mentioned, bringing up a holographic display. They're not hostile anymore. Without their network, they've evolved into something different, something more individual, more human, in a way. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The Nexeri had sought to impose uniformity across the galaxy, to make all technology an extension of their will. Instead, their defeat had led to an explosion of diversity, both technological and cultural, as freed civilizations began developing in their own unique directions. The annual Technology Evolution Summit begins tomorrow, Rodriguez reminded them. We have representatives from over 300 species coming to share their innovations. Even the reformed Nexari are presenting this year. This was perhaps the most significant change of all. The summit wasn't about displaying military might or technological superiority. It was about sharing knowledge, about ensuring that no single species could ever again use technology to dominate others. Humanity had learned from their victory over the Nexari and had worked to ensure those lessons weren't forgotten. We received an interesting proposal from the Centaurian Alliance, Chen said, pulling up another hologram. They want to establish a joint research facility in the former Nexeri core systems, not to study the old technology, but to develop new forms of digital life that can help protect developing civilizations. Patel smiled at this. Her work on digital ecosystems had inspired a whole new field of study across the galaxy. Species that had once feared technology as a tool of oppression were learning to see it as something that could evolve alongside them, helping them grow while preserving their independence. You know what the funny thing is? Rodriguez mused, watching as more delegates filed into the council chamber below. The Nexeri thought they were the pinnacle of evolution because they could control technology. But real evolution isn't about control. It's about adaptation, cooperation, growth. They never understood that. A soft chime announced the beginning of the council session. As they made their way to their seats, Chen reflected on how far they'd come. Humanity had entered the galactic stage fighting for survival against a technological empire. They had emerged not as conquerors, but as teachers, showing others how to build something greater than empire, a community of equals, bound together by shared knowledge and mutual respect. The Council recognizes Earth's delegation, announced the AI moderator, its voice carrying the combined wisdom of 100 species technology. Today's agenda includes the proposal for the Universal Digital Rights Accord, ensuring that no species technology can ever be used against them without their consent. As Chen took the podium, she saw not an assembly of alien species, but a family of civilizations that had grown together through adversity. The Nexeri had tried to create unity through dominance. Humanity had achieved something far greater, unity through diversity, strength through cooperation. 10 years ago, we faced a choice, she began. We could use our victory to establish our own empire, to become what we had defeated. Instead, we chose a harder path. We chose to share our knowledge, to help others grow strong, to build a galaxy where technology serves all species equally. The chamber fell silent as she continued. The Nexeri believed that the only way to prevent chaos was to control everything. We proved them wrong. We showed that the greatest stability comes not from control, but from freedom. Not from uniformity, but from diversity. Not from domination, but from cooperation. As she spoke, data streams flowed through the station's quantum networks. The descendants of both human and Nexeri technology, now evolved into something greater than either species had imagined. They carried not commands or controls, but knowledge, art, dreams, the combined creativity of thousands of civilizations working together to build something new. We look to the future not with fear of what might try to control us, but with excitement for what we might become together. The stars are no longer a battlefield or a hunting ground. They're our shared home, and we are all its guardians. The applause that followed wasn't just for her words, but for what they represented, the final transformation of the galaxy from a place of predator and prey to one of partners and peers. Humanity had changed the rules of evolution itself, proving that the true apex of development wasn't the ability to dominate, but the wisdom to cooperate, to grow, to evolve together. As the council session continued, the quantum networks hummed with the combined thoughts and innovations of 1,000 worlds, each adding their own unique note to the symphony of galactic civilization. The age of technological domination was over. The age of shared evolution had begun.